G'day and welcome to the Investor Motivation Podcast. My name is Robert Gowdy and this is Amy Lehman. Welcome, Amy.
Hello. How is everybody?
Well, this
Being
everybody
you.
is going well. And how are you?
Yeah, brilliant. It's Friday coming up to a long weekend, so we thought we'd get a couple of podcasts done in a row today.
Smash them out.
Yep. While we're in the good mood.
Yep. Caffeined up, lots of good conversations to have. But what are we chatting about today?
Today we are going to cover off on young people and young graduates in particular. People that, have worked hard at uni, they might not have, a lot of money in the bank because they have been at uni for quite some time, and some of the things that they need to consider, moving forward into employment and just how to set themselves up to be as financially savvy as they can.
Yeah, and this came from a question that I got on TikTok, which I'll get back to soon, which is, graduated, starting a new job. What do I think about? What do I start? What should I be thinking about? It's a really good question. And the one thing that I do know for young people these days, and actually all people, we're all on our phones, we're all on social media, we're all seeing so much information, good, bad and indifferent, that it's really hard to know where to start. What should I focus on? Because there's so much noise.
There is a lot of noise out there.
I
was going to say, especially from, investing is one thing, and do I invest, but then what do I invest into? There's just products galore and fees galore, and it's a lot of noise. So let's hopefully distill it down to what is important.
Yep, people telling people to buy properties so they can lose money on it with negative gearing. People telling them to buy cryptocurrencies because that's a flavour of the month and a new thing. And it's just hard to distill where you should focus, where should you spend your time.
Yeah.
So I think one area that is not on our list, but we need to mention Peter Thornhill from an education and where to invest. So we probably need to mention that.
Yep.
Before we launch into that conversation, Amy, acknowledgement of land, please.
Yep. On behalf of the Investor Motivation Podcast, we would like to pay our respects to the traditional owners of the land on which we do record this podcast, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging.
Cool. So I mentioned Peter Thornhill, unofficially our mentor. Thank you, Peter. But I first saw Peter back in 2001, and that's where there was light bulb moments for me as a younger person about really highlighting where I needed to invest, which meant where I didn't need to be investing.
Yeah.
And I think there's an amazing amount of information. If you even look on our website, there's some YouTube videos there that Peter did many years ago, but I would recommend, he's been on podcasts, so there's lots of information. Have a look at the book. It'll be the best $30 that you spend, and it really hones in on where to invest. With so much noise, I think that's an ideal place to start for those that are interested in investing. Of course, this is only one element of what to think about when you're a new graduate, but I would highly recommend that people grab the book, watch the videos, listen to the podcasts and so on. It's the best story out there.
Yeah. And so for the young graduates that have come to this podcast to hear a little bit of that story now, what do you think are the maybe two main takeouts from Peter Thornhill?
He really is exceptional about explaining where to invest and where not to. So there's essentially three spots that we can invest, and that is shelter, being property, and that can be commercial or residential. You can invest into cash, term deposits, and you can invest into businesses. And he has all the data to back this up, why investing into businesses trumps all other asset classes. Now, there'll be plenty of people saying, yes, but I've done really well at a property. Well, yeah, and plenty of people have, but quite often it's the leverage that's made the difference there. That you can have $5 or $10 and the bank will give you the remaining $90, and that's at leverage. So people are taking on, with leverage comes risk. But when it comes down to the actual asset class itself, it's over the long term, it's investing into businesses. The share market is what will give you an amazing return. But it's a slow and steady grind.
And I think it's really great, the book as well as the videos on our website show the chart that Peter loves, and it just makes it much more of a like-for-like basis, because like you said, in the property world you can get great returns by doing a lot of leverage, but for a dollar-for-dollar basis, he's got $100,000 invested 1979, all the way through to 2023, all income reinvested, and it does show, term deposits are at the bottom. They haven't done the best. They don't return a lot.
Didn't get quite to 2 million on those stats.
Yeah. So, and then it had the property, which did a lot better compared to the term deposits. And if you isolate just those two alone, you would think, yes, property's great, but then you've got to compare it to the industrials, which is the Australian businesses, and that just shoots the lights out.
Yeah, I think the property, and this was the listed property sector, that's the only data that goes back that far, might have been sort of 7 or 8 mil.
Yeah.
And then the businesses, which is the All Industrials Index. So the Australian Stock Exchange, excluding resources, that got to just under 18 mil. So it's absolute daylight.
And I really love that Peter Thornhill says, yes, I agree, property has done well and property can do well, but compared to what?
Yeah.
Compared to term deposits, yes, it's great, but compared to the industrials, no.
and how does it do that? Why is it such a big difference? And this is where he explains that you really don't want high dividends. You want dividends. You want profitable businesses. You want dividends, but you want businesses that reinvest.
Yeah.
And this is where he's the way he educates people around reinvesting into businesses is really ideal, and does an amazing job to say on average that most listed businesses they'll pay out about 50% as a dividend, and they'll keep the other 50% of the profit and reinvest back into the business, into research and development, into acquisitions, to make their products and services better. And if they do that for a long time, guess what? They sell more.
Yep, they shoot the lights out. And
Yeah.
do you want to just quickly explain why we don't look at resources for those young people?
Well, and again, this is Peter's work. As I said, I suppose we're disciples of Peter. He's our mentor. That he's got the stats that when we look at the All Ords, which is made up of the All Industrials Index and also the All Resources, you split the two out, and again, it's daylight between them.
Yeah.
Why is that? Well, let's compare BHP, who mine a lot of coal and a lot of iron ore. So what do they get for that? Well, they get what the Chinese or whatever country buy off them. They get the market rates.
Yep, commodities trade at a price, and that price is set.
That's what they get. So it's like a farmer. They get a ton of wheat, and they sell, and they're given a price by a corporation, as opposed to Apple, where I'm obviously recording this and streaming live, and our iPhones, and Amy's got hers just sitting there. When we upgrade and get a new phone, guess what? We'll be paying an extra $200. So Apple has pricing power.
Yeah. So I like to think of it with the price makers, Apple, and the industrial businesses that better their services and products to charge a higher price. They make their price.
Yep.
Whereas price takers are the resources. They dig something out of the ground and then take whatever price someone's willing to pay. So we don't want to be in those, powerless businesses when we can be in those price makers.
Yeah, and history really does tell us a story of what's happened in the past, and Peter's very good explaining that. Now, let's launch into, and this is, I didn't mean to make it a podcast on Peter Thornhill, but rule number 1 for Peter is spend less than you make.
Yeah.
So if you do that, then you're in position to talk about, where does my savings go? Where do I invest? What do I do?
Yeah.
And the advice that I gave my daughter Bella and her partner Tom just yesterday over tea was, Bella's exactly, this graduate, she's nearly finished her psychology degree. She's about to launch.
Yep.
And Tom's just finished his building apprenticeship and is about, income goes up and is about to launch.
Yep.
So they're
What do
both.
they do?
Yeah, so what do we do? What I've recommended that they do is save, that they're going to put 15 grand each into their superannuation as a salary sacrifice, which will mean they're paying 15% on the contributions instead of their marginal tax rate, which next year will be 32%. So that'll save them 17% per year on that money, that 15 grand that goes in.
Yep.
And then in 3 and a bit years, they'll both be able to drag out 50 grand from there, tax effectively, tax free on the way out, to buy their first home. And that scheme is called
the First Home Super Saver Scheme.
So, so I think that, for people that are just starting out, you just need a little bit of patience. The bank will lend you money straight away, But if you have some patience, then you're going to be able to accumulate and have a bigger deposit, which will mean less debt.
Yep.
Less debt means less risk, less stress.
Yeah.
So I would embark on that journey. And if you've started, if you've gone from student, no money, to, earning 60, 70, 80, 90, 100,
Yeah.
well, you may not miss it because
Yeah,
you're already
exactly
used to running
right.
lean.
Yeah, and the best and easiest way to do that is by salary sacrificing that money, so you actually don't see it hit the bank account ever and have to save it. It just automatically is going into super for you,
Yep.
ready for you to pull out for your first home.
And it's the most tax effective way that anyone's ever going to save for their first home. We know there's an absolute crunch out there for first home buyers.
Yep.
How on earth do you get in?
Yeah.
Well, this is a start. We can't give up. We have to have a plan, and I think this is a great way, well, the best way to do it tax effectively.
Yeah.
You are saving far more by doing this strategy than paying tax at 32% and saving the remainder.
Yeah.
Cool.
Definitely.
So to do that, you need to need to manage your expenses. You need to budget a bit. But when I use the term budget, I'm already asleep. It's boring me completely.
is. Boring as budget.
Yep, boring as budget. I love that. So probably what I've recommended, say for Bella and Tom, is I say just have this set up,
Yep.
make it happen, and see how it works. Don't think too much about the rest of it because you've got to have fun. You young people, go out and do all the fun stuff.
Yep.
But if you have this up and running, you are saving.
Exactly.
And
it's for the number one thing that is your goal in life at that point in time, so why not do it?
Yep. Yeah. So does that mean you need to budget intensely and have Excel spreadsheets and all the rest and apps dominating your life?
No.
Hell no. Go and have fun.
Yeah.
With and you might be able to save even additionally more outside of that.
Yeah.
If you want. What else are we thinking about for someone that's just graduated and they've got a good income? What do they need to think about then next, Amy? What's your thoughts?
Yeah. Well,
You are this person, actually.
I am actually this person.
Yeah.
Still got my HEX debt as well, which we can talk about. Oh, and while we're on First Home Super Saver and concessional contributions
Yep.
into superannuation, doing those concessional contributions reduces your tax bracket that you're in because your income tax is reduced by the amount into super, which also actually reduces the amount of HEX that you have to repay each and every year.
Right.
Which, historically being a very, very low interest rate on the HEX, it was a lot of people's...
Or the inflation rate.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, which they used as the interest on that debt. It was historically very, very low, so it would drag out the HEX debt for quite as long as possible because it's much lower than a mortgage. So that is one way to reduce the amount of repayments onto the HEX debt. But if you do want to pay your HEX, you can do that.
Great. Okay. What's your thoughts on HEX? Obviously, the government came out and made some big changes which provide some relief and brought the inflation rate down that was applied to people's HEXs. How excited should people be around? Would you put that before the first super home saver?
Absolutely not.
Cool. Because we're saving 17%.
Yes.
If they're between certain tax brackets, compared to what might be limited to wages growth or 3%. Is that where the government got to?
CPI or wage price index,
Okay, so good advice. Certainly not.
Absolutely not from me.
Yep, and
but
I agree.
If buying a home wasn't your goal in life and you wanted to reduce debt, obviously, then yes.
Yes, yep. Very good. Superannuation. Obviously, young people, we all start off with low balances. We can't touch the money until we are at least 60 and retired. So for a young person that's just the bottom lip, frowny face. The bottom lip just dropped on Amy. So at age, how old are you now, Amy?
25.
25. So you cannot touch any of this money for 35 years.
Yeah.
It's a long time. So that means it's the ultimate in long term. So we need to make sure that your asset allocation is appropriate for your age.
Yeah.
Which is growth orientated.
Yeah. And the more educated we can make people, young people especially, with the knowledge that it is such a long time horizon, we've got so much time to withstand fluctuations in the market, crashes, runs, everything, that we do want it to be as aggressive as possible.
Cool. So see Peter Thornhill again.
Yeah.
He speaks a lot about volatility and the psychological side of investing. Again, go back to see Peter Thornhill on that one. Absolute gold.
Which
Yeah.
just while we're on
Yes.
investments and how you set up in super, if you are doing the first home super saver scheme, because that is one way you can access super before retirement or a condition of release, you might want to think about having a portion of your super set aside in some more conservative assets.
Yep.
And especially while term deposit rates right now are at that, 4 or 5%.
Yeah.
It's a risk-free rate of return that.
Yeah, it's not a long term. Yeah. So, excellent point, Amy, that, if you work out how long it takes to put 50 grand extra in, if you're putting 15 grand away each year,
Yeah.
it's only 3 and a bit years.
Yeah.
So that's not long term. So that's where you might be substantially more conservative. Very good. Now, this is an amazing topic and a boring one. Life insurance, income
Yeah.
protection, and possibly trauma, life TPD. How does this fit? Do you need debt and children dependents before you look at that?
No, not at all. I think it's when you're a young person that's done, 3 or 4 years of study to get a degree or become this graduate, you want to protect your ability to make an income based on that, knowledge that you've got and education you have. So income protection is the number one way to do that. And you can have it within super so it doesn't affect your cash flow.
Yep.
And it just protects your ability to earn that high income you've studied for.
Great. So what income protection will do, and depending on your occupation, will pay out a monthly benefit up to about 75% of your wage. And depending on your occupation, for more labour-intensive occupations, income protection is harder to get, but it can pay out to age 67.
Yeah.
So, and it will pay out, say, whatever, 75% of your wage all the way through to age pension age.
Yeah.
So, your biggest asset in life is our ability to earn through hard work, and so income protection is there. Trauma insurance, I think, is important, and that is one that pays out a lump sum in event of a critical illness, cancer, stroke, heart attack. None of this is fun, but well worth looking into. And whilst I don't think young people need life insurance, but TPD, total and permanent disability, if you can't, yes, your income protection will kick in, but would you need a lump sum? And when you're young and hopefully not smoking and not vaping, some of this stuff is not overly expensive, and your superannuation fund can help fund the premiums to make sure that your cash flow is not smashed.
Yeah. And like you said, the life insurance piece for young people isn't as important, especially when you don't have, debts or dependents. But when you do start to buy that first home and you've got young kids especially, you want to make sure there's a lump sum left if you were to pass away to just fund their future and reduce debt.
Fantastic. Very good. For me, that's, without throwing too much at young graduates, for me that's sort of really the main things that I think about. And also getting that balance right between saving and also having fun.
Yeah.
I think I can watch, Bella, my family going from, things are tough and there's just not much money and they're struggling through to potentially having, some money where all of a sudden there's freedoms and I also want them to go and have a whole bucket load of fun and experiences as well. So I think that should be part of it as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I did actually do on my Instagram and my TikTok what I do with my money as a financial advisor and as a young person. So if you want to go see that, I show, my bank accounts, my pay, what gets split to where.
Yep.
So it's, if,
Cool.
I don't know, if you care about what I do.
That's the Wealth Diaries.
Yes, the Wealth Diaries on Instagram
Cool.
and TikTok.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thanks, Amy.
No worries.
If anyone's got any questions, any topics you'd like us to cover, please check it out. We now have, I think, nearly 650 videos on YouTube. The channel is growing, and if any topics that you'd like cover, we're happy to do it. It's what we like to do. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Cool. See ya. Bye.